This talk is about defeating diabetes through diet. What we have is the big D diet, obviously, for diabetes, which is what I'm going to talk about, but I'll also give you some introduction and explanations for why we're saying what we're saying and how it works. My name is Veronika Powell. I'm the health campaigner for Vegetarian and Vegan Foundation and for Viva. There's about 3.5 million diabetics in the UK. The numbers are rising by the month, and just about every day around 400 people are diagnosed with diabetes. And many cases of diabetes are reversible through lifestyle and diet changes. Now, that's about type 2 diabetes. Type 1 is slightly different. The D diet that I'm going to talk about is the most effective diet in the treatment of diabetes. It's sustainable in long term and does not limit calorie intake. You might have heard of those sensational pieces of research claiming that you can reverse diabetes with by eating only 600 calories per day. We're not advocating anything like that because that's basically starving yourself, and you can't keep it up for too long, and it's definitely not the way to go if you want to stay diabetes free for the rest of your life. The D diet affects the body on many levels and can prevent or treat diabetes-related health conditions. So not just control the blood sugar, but it can also help with high blood pressure, raised cholesterol, kidney disease, circulation and sensitivity problems, neuropathic pain, and worsening eyesight. Now, it might all sound sensational saying that our diet can help with all these, but it's all backed up by research, and we're not just making it up. Because the D diet has been tested in a number of clinical trials and has been successfully used by many healthcare professionals, mainly in the US. Most patients were able to reduce or even discontinue their medication in as little as 4 weeks. That's not the case for everyone, but many people have been able to do this. So just to summarize what diabetes is, the main problem of diabetes is that the sugar levels in your blood are too high. The blood sugar we're talking about is glucose, which is the main building block of carbohydrates or sugars. Just to illustrate, this is a molecule of glucose. It can either bind with another molecule into a simple sugar. They're the sugars that break down quickly. Or it can be bound like this with many, many other molecules. This is a starch molecule. So these longer chains and structures take longer to break down when your body is processing it. We do need glucose. It's the main fuel for our cells. So it's not a bad thing. Sugar is not a bad thing. Our cells need it. And the body's cells cannot work without glucose. And what happens in a healthy person's body is that the food is digested, sugars are broken down into glucose molecules, and then the blood supplies the glucose molecules to the tissues all over the body. What happens in the diabetic's body? The first step is the same. The food gets digested and sugars are broken down into the single glucose molecules. But glucose then cannot enter the cells, and the glucose levels in the blood rise, and they rise far too high. High blood sugar levels are bad for many reasons. One is that when sugars are too concentrated in the blood, it damages the blood vessels, which is dangerous for circulation, for many vital organs and sensitivity. It's especially dangerous for the heart, the kidneys, eyes, and sensitivity, it's about mainly the legs and feet. High blood sugar also leads to increased cholesterol levels, and most importantly, the cells are not getting enough glucose for normal functioning. In type 1 diabetes, the situation is that the body does not produce the hormone insulin. which is hormone produced in the pancreas, and it's necessary for the glucose to be able to get into the cells. Insulin is like a key that opens the cell's door for glucose. Type 2 diabetes. The body produces the hormone insulin, but the cells do not react to it, and this situation or this scenario is called insulin resistance. It used to affect mostly middle-aged or older people, but it's increasingly affecting younger people and even teenagers. The main reason that is not very often talked about is fat, and I'm not talking about being fat, although up to 80% of type 2 diabetics are overweight. But as I'll illustrate in a minute, it's slightly different than just being overweight. If the amount or type of food we eat is not right, if it's the wrong unhealthy type of food, or if it's too much, the body processes a lot of it into fat. And the fat is not stored just in the visible areas under the skin. The little drops of fat accumulate in your cells, and it can be in your muscles, in your liver, where you don't necessarily see it, and it takes a long time for these little droplets of fat to accumulate to the point that they start causing problems. If you can just look at this picture, it's muscle fibers, and this is like a cross section across the muscle fibers, and all these lighter purpley pinkish grains, they're accumulated fat in muscle fibers. So that's the type of fat that you don't notice until it starts causing some kind of problems with your metabolism. The excess fat in the cells interferes with insulin sensitivity, and quite paradoxically, it also slows down fat burning in the cell itself. And you might be asking why, when there's so much fat, why is it not trying to get rid of it? Well, the reason is evolutionary. It's how our bodies developed, because when the food was scarce, and we're talking millions of years ago, the food wasn't in a steady supply like it is nowadays. So our bodies developed in a way that when there's a lot of food, the body would store it, because then there would come time when there just wouldn't be enough food, or there would be no food. So the body would then use up all this fat to provide energy for these hungry times, so to say. But obviously, we're not in that situation anymore, but our bodies sort of are. So they still keep storing this type of fat. And you can be lean and still have this going on in your body, because this type of fat is not necessarily showing. So what can we do about it? The D diet can reverse type 2 diabetes or reduce the need of medication. It can also stabilize type 1 diabetes, and it can markedly improve blood sugar control and minimize the risk of other health conditions, and has been shown to be effective in a number of trials. That is, if you really stick to the rules. Just to give you some examples of the studies. In one of them, it was about 200 men, type 2 diabetics, and they underwent diet change and mild exercise. The exercise wasn't any type of gym fitness, it was just moderate exercise like going for walks, that sort of thing that everyone can do. And after 3 weeks, 140 of them, which is 3/4, were able to discontinue their medication completely. Another trial done more recently, it was a 22-week study, again type 2 diabetics, and these people just did the diet change alone, because the the scientists who led this trial, they just wanted to see what diet alone can do. So there was no exercise at all. And it was a plant-based, low-fat, wholesome diet. And they also had a group of people who were on the conventional diet recommended for diabetics, which means healthier diet than the mainstream, but it's not very strict, so to say. The vegan group was almost twice as successful as the conventional group in both medication reduction and weight loss. And because I was talking about the diet being able to reduce some pain that diabetics are experiencing, there was a trial with people who do suffer from this pain called neuropathy. Again, the main focus was just diet change and mild exercise, again just walking. And in 16 days, 17 of the 21 patients reported that the pain had been completely alleviated. So what is the D diet? The first rule, which might seem a bit strict, but I'll explain why, because it's really important that you stay away from all animal products. First of all, because there's no need for saturated fats and cholesterol in your diet, and the only source of cholesterol in our diet are animal products. Saturated fat is found in plant foods as well, but in much smaller proportions. And animal products, all animal products, always contain fat. And just to illustrate how much, for example, a roasted chicken contains a pint of fat, and salmon, marketed as a very healthy food, almost half of its calories come from fat, and again, most of that fat is saturated. So even though it contains the healthy omega-3s that we hear about all the time, there's still a lot of saturated fat there. Reducing fat intake is really important for many reasons. First of all, it helps the body's cells reduce the amount of fat stored inside. That's what causes the insulin resistance. It lowers blood pressure. It also lowers cholesterol levels and reduces, because it lowers blood pressure and cholesterol levels, it also reduces the risk of heart disease. And of course, if you need it, it promotes weight loss. On top of that, plant-based diet also protects the kidneys, which is very important, especially for diabetics, because animal protein makes the kidneys work harder. And that's because animal acids, the little molecules that make up proteins, are slightly, the proportions in animal protein and in plant protein are slightly different. And for example, there are many more amino acids that contain sulfur in animal products, and they make the kidneys work harder. And also animal protein causes more nitrogen byproducts, which again are filtered by the kidneys. So all foods, when you're on the D diet, all foods should be of plant origin and unrefined, which means wholemeal, no white sugar, no white flour, etc. And if you stick to that rule, it means that the diet is naturally high in fiber, is high in complex carbohydrates, which is the type of sugar that is digested slowly and keeps the blood sugar from getting too high or getting too low, which is what you definitely want to avoid when you're a diabetic. And also, the food should be low in fat, with the exception of oils and nuts and seeds. Which leads us to the second rule. Second rule is a part of the first rule, but it's got a special section because it needs a bit more explanation. So the second rule is the diet needs to be low in fat. because, as I said, the body needs to get rid of the excess fat. And low fat means the body gets the essential amount of fat, but not more. It's important to mention that we're not advocating no fat, because you do need some essential healthy fats in your diet. So we're not saying just no fat at all, go to the extreme. You need the essential fats, which can all be found in plant oils. And the general rule, if you read nutrition labels or if you're calculating the amounts yourself, per serving it should be not more than 3 grams of fat or 10% of calories from fat, because on the nutrition labels on products you sometimes have it in weight, say how many grams of fat are in that type of food, or you have it in percent. So 3 grams or 10% of calories from fat. And the third rule, there are only 3 rules, is that all the foods you eat, or most of them, should have low glycemic index. What is it? Has anyone heard of glycemic index before? Yeah? I'll just quickly summarize it. Glycemic index is a measure of the speed at which sugars or carbohydrates from food are digested and consequently absorbed in the bloodstream. So foods that have high glycemic index or high GI are those that break down quickly and are absorbed really quickly, which means that they cause blood sugar highs, and then because they all get absorbed really quickly, the blood sugar then dips low again, which is not desirable, of course. Foods with low glycemic index, they break down and are absorbed into the bloodstream slowly, giving you a steady energy supply. And they not only keep the blood sugar more steady, they also prevent hyper and hypoglycemia. And just to illustrate that, you don't need to read all of those, but just to give you a rough idea. Contrary to what many people believe, most fruits and vegetables actually have low glycemic index, and that's because they contain a lot of fiber, so the fiber prevents the sugars from being absorbed too quickly. Also, pulses such as beans, peas, soya, lentils and chickpeas, they're all really good because they all have low glycemic index and they're naturally low fat. Hummus is also a brilliant food. Whole wheat, barley, buckwheat, oats, all these whole grains have low glycemic index. The idea is that the less processed the grain is, the lower the glycemic index. So if you just cook the whole grains, that's the ideal scenario, and then the more you process them, the higher the glycemic index gets. Maybe surprisingly, pasta has low glycemic index, and that's because it's so densely, tightly packed. If you imagine, the pasta piece, it's not like bread. It's not spongy, and it's really densely packed. So it takes the body a while to actually break down the molecules and process them. Sweet potatoes, again, they're potatoes. They contain natural carbohydrates, but they also contain a lot of fiber, which slows down the digestion. Nuts and seeds, some dried fruits such as apricots, prunes and apples, and say from breakfast cereals, low glycemic index are all bran cereals, natural muesli. Natural means not sweetened, and basically just oats, dried fruit, some nuts and seeds. And the only type of bread that's got really low glycemic index is the whole grain pumpernickel bread, that really dark rye bread, which has got quite a distinct taste, so not everyone likes that, obviously. And then soy milk products or soya yogurt. medium glycemic index, which is still okay for diabetics, but obviously you should prefer the low glycemic index. So the medium is various types of whole grain breads, rye breads, oat cakes, and then some brown rice. Porridge oats, because they're already sort of broken down. The only exceptions from fruit that is not low but medium glycemic index are pineapples, cantaloupe melons, figs and raisins. And again, even though I mentioned that beans are really good, beans in tomato sauce, because the tomato sauce contains sugar, it makes it slightly higher up on the glycemic index scale. And then the foods that you should try to avoid at all cost, the foods with high glycemic index are white potatoes, white bread, white rice, all sorts of like really, obviously starchy, sweet foods. For example, cornflakes as well, because they contain a lot of sugar. Processed breakfast cereals like sweetened chocolate cereal and similar. And the three exceptions from the fruit and veg category, watermelon, pumpkin and dates. And then obviously sugary foods, that anything you can think of which has got a lot of sugar in it, like biscuits, cakes. But there are some types of cakes you can eat. I'll tell you about them later. So the D diet is a plant-based, low-fat and low glycemic index diet. And therefore it's based on these food groups: whole grains, pulses, fruits and vegetables, and nuts, seeds and oils. From the last category, we recommend preferably flaxseed, hemp seed, walnut and rapeseed oils, because they're all really high in omega-3s. They're the healthy polyunsaturated fats that are good for you for many reasons. So they are the healthiest. And then you might be asking about olive oil and similar. Olive oil is okay as well, but these are still a bit better. Okay, so now you might be wondering, what can you eat that we've taken so much away from you? So just a few examples: bean chili, chickpea curries, this is a nut roast, I think, chocolate, dark chocolate, not milk, dark chocolate, and obviously not the whole bar, but just a little bit afterwards. Beans on toast, classic food, dried fruit, nuts and seeds, hummus with whole grain crackers, muesli, roasted vegetables, various pasta dishes, whole grain breads, salads, risotto, as I said, a lot of fruit and vegetables, things made with soya yogurt or other plant-based milks, lentil dishes, stir fries. This one is with tofu. So I hope that gave you a little idea of the variety of foods you can still eat on the D diet, and that you don't need to be starving yourselves. Diabetics need to deal with several issues to achieve a really substantial change in the condition. And it is very difficult at times. And so that's why we say that the D diet is really important in the way that it can really help with all these issues that I'm going to mention. So the first obvious problem is the sugar content of food. Then it's the fat stored in the body cells, high blood pressure and cholesterol because of the slightly altered diabetic metabolism, and pain and circulation problems caused by poor blood sugar control. As I said, the D diet targets all of them. So how it works? You might still be slightly unsure about how does just eating this very healthy diet help with all these separate problems. So the first of all, it improves metabolism. It eliminates the fat stores in your cells, which means that it removes the fat droplets, as I demonstrated before, which are a type of obstacles in the way of the healthy metabolism, and therefore are blocking the insulin sensitivity. It also helps your heart. How? When you steer away from refined white carbohydrates and from saturated fats, the risk of heart and circulation problems just plummets. It's a well-known fact that the two worst things for your heart are saturated fats and white sugars and white bread, things like that. It also helps your kidneys. As I already mentioned before, the kidneys can cope with plant protein much better than with animal protein. And by switching to the plant-based vegan diet, you relieve the kidneys, which are already working hard when you have diabetes. And it's now a well-known fact that high-protein diets such as Atkins work the liver and kidneys very hard to filter out all the nitrogen products and basically are effective in short term when you just want to lose weight, but they bring about long-term health problems, and many experts now warn against diets like that. And it's been shown again by separate research that among people with any degree of kidney damage, animal protein actually causes or increases the risk of further damage. And it also protects all vital organs, because as I mentioned, many of the diabetes-associated complications are caused by blood sugar levels being too high, which damages the blood vessels, and that's a really crucial problem for every single organ in your body. And high blood sugar also inevitably leads to raised cholesterol levels, because it just slightly alters the biochemistry of the blood. So it's really important to control the blood sugar as much as possible. And diets based on starchy, high-fiber foods not only remove the excess cholesterol and enable the body to digest carbohydrates gradually, but they also prevent the blood glucose levels from rising too high. And finally, it helps you to shed weight because the diet induces general weight loss, and it does so without portion restriction. It won't make you dangerously thin, because that's why we say there's no portion or calorie restriction. And the food you eat, because it's high in fiber and because it's low in fat, it fills you up faster, and then it takes longer to digest. So it's like a self-regulating type of diet, when you can eat more than you might have been used to, but at the same time the amount of calories you're eating is slightly lower. So what we're recommending is try the D diet for 4 weeks and really stick to the rules for the 4 weeks, because you will be able to see results. I'm not saying your diabetes will be reversed in 4 weeks, but 4 weeks are enough time for you to see significant changes, and not just in your, say, blood readings, but also in the way you feel. What we have is the Big D report, which is a report explaining all the science behind it. It's fully referenced, so if you want to read about what I've said and more, because I haven't had time for everything, please help yourselves. They're on that little table going around the pillar. We also have the Big D guide, which is a very practical thing to have because it summarizes the theory, but then the second half is full of recipes. It contains a list of suitable products, so it makes it really easy. If you go shopping, you can just look at the list which products are suitable. And it also contains a menu planner for a week. So it should give you a really good idea of how to do the D diet properly. And if you just want to take something with you, but not the big guides and reports, we have a fact sheet that is summarizing everything in about 4 pages. Also, if you want, you can get a D-pack and pledge to follow the D diet for 4 weeks. But basically the D-pack is all these materials, the report, the fact sheet and the guide. And then we have feedback forms. So if you'd like to try the diet for 4 weeks, I'd like to ask you if you could fill in the feedback forms as you go throughout the 4 weeks and then send them back to me. It's not that we'll be checking how well you've managed to adhere to the diet, but it's a feedback for us because we always want to hear from people and see how well it's worked for them. So all these materials are available on our website, vegetarian.org.uk/diabetes. And there's also a very useful website, vegetarianrecipeclub.org.uk, where a lot of the recipes are labelled as diabetic suitable. And if you want to email me with any questions, it's veronika@vegetarian.org.uk. Now, thank you very much for listening. I know we're a bit behind, so if you have any questions, I'll answer them on the side. Okay? Thank you very much.